Hey everyone and welcome in. We're diving deep into inpatient alcohol rehab today.
Definitely a topic a lot of folks could use some solid info on.
Absolutely. And it seems like you all out there are really seeking that deeper understanding based on the insightful articles you've sent over.
Yeah, shows a real desire to cut through the noise, get to the heart of it.
Exactly. So think of this as your no-nonsense guide to inpatient alcohol rehab. What it really is, how it works, what to expect, no sugarcoating.
We're talking separating fact from fiction, empowering yourselves with the right knowledge.
Right off the bat, our sources define inpatient rehab as a truly immersive experience. You're living at the facility 24/7, totally focused on overcoming alcohol addiction. It's like pressing pause on life to really delve into recovery.
And what's key to remember is it's not a one-size-fits-all thing. Two main types. Inpatient rehab, the more hospital-like setting, and then residential treatment, more like a structured, supportive living environment.
Okay, so almost like, I don't know, is it fair to say a hospital stay versus a rehab center that feels more like maybe a comfortable retreat?
Mm-mm.
But why does that distinction even matter when you're choosing the right path?
It all boils down to the level of medical care needed. Picture someone battling severe withdrawal
Right,
symptoms.
that's serious stuff.
Exactly. They might need that constant medical watchfulness of true inpatient. But someone further along, maybe already detoxed, they could thrive in residential treatment where it's more about therapy, rebuilding their life.
So meeting people where they are in their journey, kind of tailoring the environment and the support to what they need at that moment.
That's it. It's about what's going to set them up for success.
Makes sense. Now, the question probably on everyone's mind, how long does this whole thing actually take? Is there like a magic number?
Ah, the million-dollar question, honestly. No magic number. You see those programs 30, 60, 90 days, but it truly depends on the person.
There's no one size fits all, huh?
Nope. And in fact, there are even some innovative programs looking at shorter durations, especially for people with milder addictions, strong support systems.
Shorter programs, that's interesting.
Yeah, the thinking is, why disrupt someone's life longer than absolutely needed if they can transition back sooner with the right tools?
Makes sense. So what are the things that make it more likely someone needs that longer stay inpatient? What are those red flags, so to speak?
Well, one big one is the severity of the addiction. Someone struggling for years, multiple relapses, they'll likely need more time to unravel those deep-rooted patterns, build coping mechanisms.
Takes time to undo those years, right?
It does. It's like learning anything difficult. Some folks pick it up fast, others need that extra practice. And then there's the home environment. Imagine going back to a place full of triggers, stress, no support.
Yeah, that's setting yourself up for failure almost.
Right. They might benefit from a longer stay to build a solid base before going back to that challenging environment.
So it's like building up that resilience before stepping back into the world. Once they have that base, it's easier to face those triggers without falling back into old habits.
Exactly. It's about setting them up for the long haul, not just a quick fix.
Okay, so we've established it's personalized, no fixed timeline. But let's get real. What's actually going on inside inpatient rehab? Time to demystify the experience a bit.
Right. Gotta ditch those Hollywood stereotypes, the luxurious spas and endless pampering. Inpatient is not a vacation. It's about confronting your challenges head on, but in a safe and structured way, of course.
Right, not a getaway. It's about doing the work. So what does that work actually look like? Our sources mention key services offered during inpatient. What's usually the first hurdle people encounter?
For most, it starts with medical detox, safely, gradually weaning the body off alcohol, all under medical supervision. It's crucial, especially for those physically dependent at risk of those difficult, sometimes even dangerous withdrawal symptoms.
We're talking about helping people safely through that initial withdrawal, which I imagine could be pretty rough.
Oh, it can be intense. Think of it like as your body's clearing out the alcohol, it's trying to find its equilibrium again. So that can mean anything from, headaches, trouble sleeping, to more severe stuff. Nausea, tremors, anxiety, even seizures in some cases. Not easy.
So that's why that medical detox is so important. They're there to guide you through that.
Exactly. That's the key. They can monitor those symptoms, give meds to ease things, and above all, just keep the person safe, minimize the risks, maximize comfort as much as possible.
It's that safety net everyone needs during that time. Okay, so once someone's body is starting to recover, what's next? What does a day in inpatient rehab actually look like? Is it all group therapy and meditation or what?
Well, picture this. You wake up, and your day is structured. Not rigid, but a plan. It's like a balanced recipe for recovery. And one key ingredient is that individual therapy. digging into the root causes, the patterns, the triggers, all with a qualified therapist, of course.
So you're going beyond just stopping the drinking. You're trying to understand why you were drinking in the first place.
Exactly. It's that self-awareness, right? Unearthing those ingrained habits, the thought patterns that were feeding the addiction. And from there, you can start building healthier ways to cope, like learning a new language, but the language is self-care, resilience, all that good stuff.
Rewiring the brain, so to speak.
You got it. Now, our sources also talk about group therapy, how that's a cornerstone of inpatient. What's the magic there in that group setting?
Yeah, what is it about being in a group that seems so helpful?
It's powerful stuff. Imagine you're in a room with people who get it, who've been there, walked in your shoes, you know, the struggles, the victories, it's all shared. You're not alone anymore. And that camaraderie, that understanding, it's incredibly healing. Safe space to share your story, learn from others, realize, hey, I'm not the only one fighting this battle.
That built-in support network is so important. People who get it because they've lived it themselves.
Absolutely. And it's not just talk therapy either. A lot of places now are incorporating holistic things, yoga, meditation, art therapy, even music therapy. It's about nourishing the whole person.
Yeah, treating the whole person, not just the addiction. Makes sense.
Right. It's about rediscovering yourself, healthy outlets for stress, building a life that has meaning beyond the bottle.
So we've talked about the therapeutic side, but our sources also mention medication management as part of the plan. What's the role of medication in all this?
Medication, it can be really valuable, especially early on. Think of it as a bridge. It helps manage those intense withdrawal symptoms, the cravings as someone's starting out. It's not about replacing therapy or support groups. It's working alongside them to give a more complete level of care.
So giving the individual their best shot by tackling both the physical and the psychological.
Right. And we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about costs here. It's a big factor for anyone thinking about inpatient.
Oh, absolutely. The elephant in the room for sure.
It can be expensive, no getting around it. Our sources do a good job breaking down typical costs, but it varies. Location matters, program length, amenities, it all adds up.
So no one-price-fits-all situation.
Not even close. But before anyone panics, let's talk about ways to make it more doable. Yeah.
Okay, let's do it. Give us the numbers. What are we looking at, financially speaking?
Well, the National Center for Drug Abuse Statistics, they say a 30-day program, a standard one, that can be anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000. Big range.
Yeah, big range. Highlights why it pays to do your homework.
For sure. Location, big city versus more rural area, that'll make a difference. Types of accommodations, level of care, it all factors in.
And longer programs, those obviously cost more, yeah.
Of course, 60, 90 days, those can average around $36,000 according to what we've got here. It's an investment, no doubt. But good news is, lots of places accept insurance.
Okay, that's a relief for a lot of people, I'm sure.
Huge. Call your insurance, understand your coverage before you do anything else, seriously.
Don't let cost be a barrier if you need help.
Yeah.
Figure out that side of things.
Exactly. And most places, they have financial counselors now. They can walk you through it all, the payment options, insurance stuff, the whole 9 yards. They're there to help.
That guidance is invaluable. Okay, so someone's heard all this. How do they know if inpatient is even the right call for them or for a loved one who's struggling? How do you make that decision?
That's where a personalized assessment comes in. Inpatient isn't for everyone, can't stress that enough. There are other options, outpatient, therapy, that might be better fits. It's about finding what's right for the person.
So how do the professionals figure out if inpatient's the way to go? What are they looking at during that assessment?
They're looking at the whole picture, being thorough. The sources highlight a few things. Severity of alcohol use, obviously how much, how often, all that. Then there's the person's track record with quitting. Have they tried and relapsed before multiple times? They also factor in any other health stuff going on, diabetes, liver problems, anything alcohol could make worse.
Connecting the dots, because physical and mental health, it's all related.
Absolutely. Mental health too, depression, anxiety, those often go hand in hand with addiction. Got to address those underlying things for long-term recovery.
Peeling back the layers, figuring out what makes this person tick.
Exactly. And it's not just about them either. Their support network matters. Strong family, friends, people to encourage them, hold them accountable. Is their home environment a safe place to recover, or is it full of triggers?
Going back to a triggering environment is tough. Recipe for disaster sometimes.
Absolutely. And lastly, there's the practical stuff. Finances, transportation, any legal issues tangled up in all this. It's about painting the full picture to see if inpatient's the best place for them to actually succeed.
Okay, so let's say someone's done the assessment, weighed the options, and they're taking that step into inpatient rehab. What happens when they walk through the door? What can they expect that initial experience to be like?
Well, our sources break it down into four main stages, each one building on the last to keep moving them forward in their recovery.
All right, let's hear those stages. What's the very first thing?
First thing is a full medical screening. Usually happens day one, head to toe kind of thing. They're checking overall health, getting a detailed medical history, seeing if there's anything urgent that needs attention right away.
So figuring out their baseline, physically, mentally, where they're starting from.
Exactly, taking inventory. And here's where honesty is absolutely key. Got to be upfront about their alcohol use, any other substances, past medical stuff, pre-existing conditions, the whole nine yards. The medical team needs that full picture to make the best treatment plan.
No sugarcoating allowed.
Nope. Got to be real with yourself and the people trying to help you. Honesty is the best policy, as they say.
Medical screening, check. What comes after that? So they've been through the initial screening. They're ready to tackle the physical side of things. That detox, what's that phase actually like?
Detoxification, or detox for short, it's all about safely and gradually weaning the body off alcohol. And it happens under 24/7 medical watch, which is super important. This is especially crucial for folks who've become physically dependent on alcohol.
This is where they're dealing with their body's physical reliance on alcohol, right?
Exactly. Think of it like this. As your body's clearing itself out, it has to readjust, and that can bring on those withdrawal symptoms we talked about.
And we did talk about how intense those symptoms can get. Give us a sense of what someone might actually go through during this detox phase.
It's kind of like hitting the reset button on how your body interacts with alcohol. For some, it's pretty mild, headaches, can't sleep, some anxiety, that sort of thing. But for others, especially if they've been drinking heavily for a long time, it's rougher. We're talking nausea, the shakes, sweating. Some people even have seizures. That's why you absolutely need medical supervision during this time.
They need that safety net, someone there with them through those rough waters.
Absolutely. The medical team, they know how to manage those symptoms, what medications can ease things, and most importantly, how to keep the person safe. It's about making it as bearable as possible given the circumstances.
Okay, so they've done the screening, they made it through detox. What's next in this inpatient journey?
That's where the real work begins, what we call the structured care phase. This is a core of inpatient rehab. It's where they really dig into the psychological and emotional aspects of recovery.
What does that actually look like day to day?
So their days will be structured, but not in a rigid way. There's a schedule, kind of a balanced routine, like a recipe for recovery, you could say. One of the main ingredients is that individual therapy, really digging into what's at the root of the addiction, those underlying patterns, the triggers that have been driving their behavior.
Hmm.
And it's about learning to cope in healthier ways.
It's more than just not drinking anymore. It's about understanding why they were drinking so much in the first place.
Exactly. It's about building self-awareness, uncovering those ingrained habits, the thought patterns that fueled the addiction. And from there, you can begin to build new, healthier ways to cope. It's almost like learning a whole new language, but the language is self-care and resilience.
Rewiring their brain, basically.
That's a great way to put it. Now, we can't forget group therapy. Our sources talk about how vital that is in inpatient.
Yeah, what is it about being in a group that's so helpful?
There's something really powerful about it. Imagine yourself in a room with people who just get it. They've been there, they've walked in your shoes. They understand the struggles and the victories because they have lived it. Suddenly, you're not alone anymore. That shared experience creates this camaraderie, a sense of understanding that's so healing. It becomes a safe place to open up, share your story, learn from others, and realize, hey, I'm not the only one fighting this battle.
That built-in support network, people who get it because they've been there themselves, that's got to be invaluable.
You're so right. And it goes beyond just talk therapy, too. Lots of inpatient programs are adding in holistic therapies these days. We're talking yoga, meditation, art therapy. Some places even do music therapy. It's about addressing the whole person.
It recognizes that recovery isn't just about cutting out alcohol, it's about overall well-being.
Exactly. It helps people rediscover themselves, find healthy ways to deal with stress, and start to build a life that has meaning beyond the bottle.
It sounds like they're really focused on setting people up for long-term success, not just putting a Band-Aid on things.
Exactly. Which brings us to that final stage of inpatient rehab aftercare planning.
What happens after someone finishes the program? Do they just get sent back out into the world to handle everything on their own?
Definitely not. Any decent program will put a lot of emphasis on aftercare. It's how they bridge that gap between the structured rehab environment and the realities of daily life. They work with each person to come up with a plan, a roadmap for their recovery.
So what does that support look like, practically speaking?
It varies, everyone's different, but a lot of times it involves things like going to support groups. Alcoholics Anonymous is a big one, continuing with individual therapy, maybe even a sober living arrangement if they need that extra layer of support.
So it's about providing a safety net, acknowledging that recovering is a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. There are going to be ups and downs, good days and bad days. Having that support system in place, it can make all the difference in staying on track.
Now, before we wrap up today, I want to go back to something we touched on earlier, the fear and stigma surrounding addiction. It's one thing to understand the logistics of rehab, but there are also these emotional hurdles that might keep someone from getting help.
That's such an important point. Stigma, it's a very real obstacle for a lot of people. It can prevent them from seeking help, even when they desperately need it.
Like they're battling the addiction itself, and then on top of that, they're battling the shame that society piles on.
Exactly. We have to remember, addiction is a health condition. It's not a moral failing. Asking for help, that takes strength, not weakness.
It takes a lot of courage to confront those demons and reach out for support.
It truly does. If anyone out there is struggling, please know this. You are not alone. There are people who care, who want to help. Don't let fear or shame stop you from getting the support you deserve. Reach out, talk to someone you trust, a friend, a family member, your doctor, a therapist, anyone.
And remember, there are resources available. The Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. They have a helpline. You can call them 24/7, and it's confidential.
That's right. You are not alone, and recovery is possible.
What a powerful message to end on. As we wrap up this deep dive, any final thoughts for our listeners?
You've all learned so much about inpatient rehab, everything from that initial screening to aftercare planning. We've covered the challenges, the victories, the importance of personalized care. But here's the takeaway. Recovery. It's a journey, not a destination. It's about self-discovery, healing, and growth. And while there might be bumps along the way, with the right support and belief in yourself, it's a journey worth taking.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. We hope you found it helpful and empowering. Remember, recovery is always possible, one brave step at a time.